Hello and welcome to the delayed September CometWatch. Before we start, I also want to say I'm dedicating this show to a friend of mine, Tony Farkas. He was an American comet imager. I met him back in 2007 on Slooh, and it's all his fault in the best possible way that I'm actually posting images of comets, because he taught me how to use RA Dec and how to set up the cameras and filters so that I could image, and that was back during the apparition of Comet Holmes. So we miss you, Tony, and I hope you're listening wherever you are and that you're actually having a fun time with the comets. My thanks to Luna Lee for the lovely intro and outro music she gave us for our show. So without further ado, I know that we've lost a lot of time, so we're going to try and get this made up. We'll crack on and get the shipping forecast done and get the rest of the show done, because we have some really terrific guests this month. So, latest discoveries. The 5th of September, Peter Barrett reports a non-group comet in archival C2 images.
And September the 5th, Peter Barrett reports a Maya group comet in archival C2 images.
And September the 6th, we have discovery of 2021 Q5 Atlas reported.
Also September the 6th, Peter Barrett reports a Maya group comet in archival C2 images.
And September the 8th, discovery of 2021 R1 periodic pan-stars reported.
September the 8th, again, discovery of 2021 R2 pan-stars reported.
September the 9th, discovery of 2021 Q6 pan-stars reported.
September the 11th, the start of a very busy day, discovery of 2021 R3 periodic pan-stars reported.
September 11th, discovery of 2021 R4 periodic Wirchos reported.
September the 11th, discovery of 2021 R5 periodic Rankin reported.
And September the 11th again, Robert Picard reports a Kreutz group comet in archival C2 images.
September the 11th, and here he comes. Warshop Bloomplod reports a Kreutz group comet in real-time C3 images.
September the 11th again, Warshop Bloomplod reports a non-group comet in real-time C2 images.
And finally on September the 11th was Masanori Yuchina reports a Kreutz group comet in real-time C3 images.
September 12th, Warshop Bloomplod reports a Kreutz group comet in real-time C3 images.
September the 15th, Warshop Bloomplod reports a Kreutz group comet in real-time C3 images.
And September the 17th, Robert Picard reports a Kreutz group comet in archival C2 images.
Peter Barrett on September the 17th reports a Kreutz group comet in archival C2 images.
Robert Picard reports on September the 18th, Robert Picard reports two Kreutz group comets in archival C2 images.
And September the 18th, Warshop Bloomplod reports a Kreutz group comet in real-time C3 images.
September 18th, and Peter Barrett reports a Kreutz group comet in archival C2 images.
September the 19th, cometary activity in 2021 HS periodic pan-stars reported.
And September the 19th, Peter Barrett reports a Kreutz group comet in archival C2 images.
September 26th, and Robert Picard reports a Kreutz group comet in archival C2 images.
September the 26th again, Peter Barrett reports a non-group comet in archival C2 images.
And September the 28th, discovery of 2021 R6 periodic Groella reported. Sorry about that.
That's quite amusing. September the 29th, and Peter Barrett reports a Maya group comet in archival C2 images. Must be cloudy.
Yeah. September the 30th, Warshop Bloomplod reports a Kreutz group comet in real-time C3 images.
And on the 2nd of October, the site was updated.
Then we move on to current comet magnitudes and observable region. 8P Tuttle, magnitude 9, fading, 0 degrees south to 65 degrees south, early morning, last observed September 2021.
Then we have 2019 L3 Atlas, currently 10.5 and brightening. That's observable 80 degrees north to 20 degrees south. That's best viewed in the morning, and last visual observation was September 2021.
And the old favourite, 67p, Churyumov-Gerasimenko, magnitude 10.5 and brightening, 80 degrees north to 50 degrees south, best viewed in the morning, last reported in September 2021.
4p Faye, 11.5 magnitude steady, 80 degrees north to 50 degrees south, best in the morning, the last visually observed September 2021.
And in 2021-01 Nishimura, that is currently mag 11.5 and fading. That is currently in conjunction, so it's not yet had any visual observations.
Next is 2020 T2 Palomar, magnitude 12 and fading, 15 degrees north to 65 degrees south, an evening object, last reported in September.
2017 K2 Pan-STARRS, 12th magnitude, bright, 75 degrees north to 20 degrees south. It's an evening object, and last visually observed September 2021.
2021 Q5P Atlas, that is mag 12.5 and fading, observable 60 degrees north to 20 degrees south. That is best viewed in the early morning, and last visual observation was September 2021.
Next is 6p D arrest, magnitude 13 and steady, 30 degrees north to 70 degrees south, an evening object, last reported in September.
And of course, guess what? I've got 29p Swashman-Wachmann SW1, 13th magnitude, question mark, varies, 80 degrees north to 30 degrees south, best in the morning, and last visually observed September 2021.
And then we have 19p Borelli, that is currently mag 13.5 and brightening, visible 10 degrees north to 70 south. That is an all-night object, last visual observation September 2021.
Next is 2019 T4 Atlas, magnitude 14 and steady, currently at poor elongation, last viewed in July.
Followed by 15p Finley, 14th magnitude, fading, 75 degrees north to 20 degrees south, best viewed in the morning, and it's last visually observed September 2021.
Then we have 2020 J1 Sonia. That is currently mag 14 and fading. It's at poor elongation currently, and the last visual observation was 2021 September.
And finally, we have the Christmas Hope, 2021 A1 Leonard, magnitude 14 question mark and brightening, 80 degrees north to 50 degrees north, early morning object, and although this says not yet observed, it has been recently. So.
And that's the details as per the BAA Comet Section Visual Observations website. My thanks to Nick Green and Jonathan Shanklin for use of this on our show monthly. Now, we have a great show lined up. Would our guests like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Tony Angel, observer based in Spain.
Hi, I'm Helen Usher. I'm a PhD student at the Open University and also working with the Forks Telescope project.
Hi, I'm Sarah Roberts and I'm the Director of Education for the Forks Telescope project.
Welcome to the show. Welcome back, Tony. It's been a long time. So I think one of the things we really wanted to discuss was our old friend 67p, because we've all been imaging it in the previous few months. It's been doing some odd things, hasn't it?
It's been doing a few odd things, not as much as what I would like, but there again, in the previous apparition, it's a fairly well-behaved comet. I think we only, from an amateur's perspective, we only spotted 2 episodes with the comet. I think it was Efrain Morales, wasn't it, Neil, who caught an outburst.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
I captured a small outburst, which was confirmed by the professional. But this time round, it's coming along nicely. Tail is developing, but we're only seeing the dust tail. unless somebody else has seen an iron tail, I certainly haven't. I first imaged it a few months back ago in April, after it had been notified that it'd been recovered, and it was quite faint then, 18. I'm not too sure about the current magnitude 10. I think it depends very much on the method of measurement, and I think that's going to be something that Helen is going to be speaking about later. I've been very lucky due to being part of a project with the Folks telescopes on their comet chasers, and one of the reasons I've been able to use their telescope, the 67P, is to compile a database for schools to use. So I'm being quite careful about how I image it. I noticed a lot of people now are imaging it, whereas at the beginning, I naturally with a low magnitude, with high magnitude, there's few people imaging it, and I was using one of the 40 centimetre telescopes. Because it's now being imaged quite regularly, I've gone over onto the utilising the 1 and 2 metre to concentrate on the coma. And we are noticing now quite a bit of change in the shape, and there's a definite downwards hook in the coma now. That's become apparent over the last few weeks, but definitely getting more pronounced.
Yeah, I think when I was imaging it back last month, it looked quite different to what I remember it to be when everybody was imaging it as part of the Rosetta mission. And I think that's probably one of the I think as you remarked on that, Neil, as well, when I actually posted the pictures.
Yeah, the coma looks very stretched out, which is normally a bad sign with comets, because it normally indicates that there's some turbulence going on with the nucleus. And as we know, 67P is a double load object. You never know; it could split apart. But I had a word with Alan Fitzsimmons, and he assures me that the comet is acting normal and as expected, and it's just our line of sight with the comet, and it's just dust in the orbit, making it look more dramatic than it actually was. He used the Atlas telescope and had a quick look for me when he had a little bit of time, and assured me everything's okay.
That's good to hear.
I confirm. My conversations with Colin Snodgrass have suggested that, it seems to be going along as normal. I'm spending a couple of days with Colin next week, so I'm hoping that we can have a look at the data in a bit more detail and just check out some stuff.
Yeah, picking up on what Tony said about the magnitude, because the Sky Live has the comet at magnitude 11.67. The BAA say 10.5.
Yeah, they do the JPL. JPL people who use JPL have to be very careful with magnitude estimates, because even if you look at comets that you know are brighter, the JPL are always about 1 or 2 magnitudes lower than predicted for some unknown reason. They never seem to update correctly.
Yeah, which filter you use can have an effect. I've been for the last couple of months, I've been using a Sloan R filter. Using a clear filter or another filter, there is a difference. And of course, how you measure the coma also has a great effect. Sort of the diameter overlay that you put on to sort of see how bright it is. If you set it at it's 8 pixels, measuring 8 pixels of the coma. There's a big difference in 12 pixels. And this is, again, an area I suspect that Helen would go on to. Last apparition, I wasn't concentrating too much because Adma asked me to do quite a number of animations and using the and that was just using a 4-inch refractor as part of the Harlington Observatory I've got here. I think we've got to be very careful about the magnitude estimates, and I think that's a key word, estimates, because until we measure in specific ways, and it is very difficult to compare. I keep all my images going back to the first comet, so that it's possible to revisit them. I mean, I could revisit all of my 67 observations from the previous apparition and this apparition, and if somebody said, right, this is the way we'd like to measure it, then I could go back and remeasure, compare with somebody else who's used exactly the same method.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point, Tony, and it's something that we're now sort of starting to talk through on the Comet mailing list as well, is how do we agree as a community what we measure and how we measure. Now, different things you measure different things for different purposes, and so that it's not a case of one measurement will give you everything you need. So how do we do it so that at least we know what we're comparing? I did some work for 67p and 29p using the MPC database. Now, if you plot those, it almost looks like two populations at some time for the same dates, because people were obviously measuring different things and logging the data. So, as Tony said, one of the things that we're looking to develop with the community as part of my PhD is some tools that will allow us to look at what we've got, revisit old data as well, and come up with some consistent ways of doing things, different apertures. And if we can get it right, which is a big if in the next couple of years, then developing some automated processes that will allow you to measure either as the consistent aperture on the sky, or perhaps even more importantly, consistent distances at the comet. So I'm putting together some little routines that will query horizons for the date and time of an observation, find out how far away it is. Then you can work out what you're measuring at, say, 10,000 kilometres at the comet, 100,000 kilometres at the comet. So we get some sort of consistency wherever it is in this orbit then as well. So.
And one of the things that Helen has been doing is analysing the 67p data from the last apparition and putting forward 67p as being the test bed for these new routines.
Yeah, and on two levels there. One, we're trying to write some things for the last campaign, and what's come out of the last campaign is the need for some consistency of the standards and a way of taking raw data rather than necessarily taking measurements, and with the metadata, so we know the circumstances in which the images and the observations were made. But then for coming up apparition now around perihelion, looking to get a big database, hopefully, of observations made with different types of equipment and different filters to act as a varied data bank that we can use for testing different methodologies, comparing whether the methods that are currently in use actually produce the same answers, even if you use different methods. But if you've got different data sets, then hopefully we can use that for compare and contrast.
Sounds like they'd be really useful tools. I know the whole process is quite complicated, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, It's definitely, people have got a very big toolbox, but you need to use various tools from different toolboxes to get to the same result. Whereas we're hoping that if we can write something that is robust, that it comes out of discussion with the community, then we give something back to the community for the data that they're giving us, and it becomes a long-term archive. And as Tony said, tools develop. So if our way of pulling signal out of noise improves in 5 years' time, then if we can revisit the data, then that's great. And if you've got things like Astrometrica, which are brilliant when they work, and they work a lot of the time, but on archival data it's actually quite hard because they use the current database for where the comets are and things. So if you could find an easy way of running archival data, then I think that all of us are going to benefit, pros, hams, whatever. I'm up for a challenge. With the community, please note, this is not a one-person job.
The other hat that Helen wears, along with Sarah, is working with the schools, and she's hoping to be able to get the schools observing 67P quite shortly with the support of Folks Telescopes Education, which is a great organisation for getting children interested in observing and bringing along the next generation of observers.
Very good, yeah.
And it's great to have the opportunity to use a 2-metre telescope.
Yes, absolutely.
I was going to say, perhaps at this point, Sarah maybe can just talk through a little bit of what we've been doing in the last week on 29P, because that's when it's doing exciting things at the moment, and we've got a whole army of schools now watching it, haven't we, Sarah?
We do, and this is precisely what the Folks Telescope project was set up to do. So the project itself was set up, it was over 20 years ago now, in the year 2000, by a UK millionaire called Dill Fawkes, and he wanted to do something to raise engagement and aspiration in school kids in the UK in STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering and maths. And he had this idea of building or paying for these 2 robotic telescopes, one in Australia, one in Hawaii, and specifically for schools to use. And when the project started, we did have the sort of strapline, real time, real science, real scientists, because our aim has always been not just to let pupils in schools, let them loose on telescopes and just take pretty pictures of the night sky, but we really wanted to get them involved in doing real science and working with astronomers. So this project that we've been doing with comets that Helen's been working on, and what we've been doing in the past week with 29P is a great example of that. So we had, Richard Miles had been from the BAA had been in contact with us and said that Comet 29P was doing something really exciting. It looked like it was going into outburst and he needed lots of images of it. So we sent a call out to all the teachers and schools that's on our mailing list, and we tweeted it and we Facebooked it. We got it out there to as many people as possible. And we had schools sort of answering the call and taking images. They were tweeting us with their data. They were emailing us with their data. So Richard's been able to gather up that data. And it's just great that schools have been able to actually get involved in helping astronomers with real science, which is what the project is about.
Well, it's good to introduce kids to citizen science at a young age, because then they'll probably keep going forward with it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really exciting, because we're saying, well, you can use a 2-metre telescope as the size of a double-decker bus over Australia, and it costs £5 million to build. And I always say to them, oh, don't worry, you can't break it, but it's not.
And the data from that telescope is phenomenal as well. I've been on the remote imaging workshop with Pete Williamson, and he gave me a load of raw data, and it is a joy to work with that data. It really is.
It is. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I was using the telescopes today with some undergraduate students actually at Swansea University who were in my astronomy lab, and they were putting in requests to look at galaxies and star clusters today, and they were actually getting their data back within about 20 minutes. And they had their data back because you'd hear gasps from across the room, and I'd go over and they were like, "Oh, look, my galaxy's been taken." It's like, oh, yeah, this is the best part of astronomy.
Definitely. So have you been affected by the volcanic eruption?
No, we haven't actually. It was our telescope. There is a telescope over in the Canary Islands, but it's not on the location where the volcano was going off. Luckily, the Liverpool telescope. So that's on the other side of the islands, on La Palma. Because the Liverpool telescope is also used for education as part of the National Schools Observatory. And I think the latest I heard from them was that they were still reviewing the situation, but it was still far enough away that they were okay to operate.
Yeah, I know the dust was a bit of a worry, wasn't it? Because it's so abrasive, volcanic dust. You don't want that on your mirrors.
Like I can remember when they had, it was a few years ago when they had the fires over at Sidon Spring Observatory.
Oh,
There were moments thinking, "Oh my goodness, what's going to happen?" We were very lucky then with the Fork South.
It's a great opportunity to be doing this with this comet, having got all the data that we did from Rosetta as well. It's just being able to put everything together to get that picture. It's really exciting, actually.
It is. It's great to have a call for arms, if you like, from the amateur and the professional community, and then just getting school pupils and teachers involved in it, and then passing the data on to professionals and amateurs to do analysis. And we are hoping that some schools can do some analysis as well, so it doesn't just stop at taking the pictures, but we can actually sort of carry on working with them then.
Yeah.
And I think to pick up on that one, we're doing the active asteroid, so 248370. Now imprinted on my brain, that one, because we've had we've had 3 schools doing images of that. They've also done some astrometric measurements as well. So we did have the multinational collaboration. We had Tony in Spain, me and my Rumney Valley, guiding the teaching assistant with his class in Bridgend, just at the end of last term, to do the astrometric measurements as well, which we then sent off to MPC. So we told them that was all part of NASA, so they thought that was really quite cool. And what's been brilliant this week, and you're probably just about the first to hear it, there's a submission gone into APJ, a letter, which has been accepted, which is Henry Heiss in PSI, has got a paper talking about this active asteroid and how unusual it is, and the schools are actually getting name checked in it. So, and Tony is a co-author, as am I, as is the teaching assistant from Bridgend Primary School as well. So he's probably the first teaching assistant in a primary school to get a co-author on a proper research paper. And this is the first of a couple, because the big 100 kilometre comet, we're also involved in observations for that one. So there's a paper in preparation that will be cited for as well. 67p is going to go into my PhD thesis, and Richard Miles is using 29p. So hopefully we'll have 4 different comets that we've got schools that are actually cited and acknowledged and can see their names in print as being real science for 10-year-olds.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's really good fun. And I was in St Mary's in Bridgend on Friday, actually, and they just, who wants to be on a mission? All the hands go up. They're just so excited. And using Rosetta, because you've got the cartoons, we know what it looks like, we've got data from it, we can tell them lots and lots of things. We've got the smelly comic cards, which is always good fun to watch. 10-year-olds don't hold back on what they think these things smell like. So yeah, we do know part of being on missions. We've got 4 missions at the moment, those 4 comets, and we're saying to them, you're part of this, you're a core part of it, and you are getting data that some of the scientists can't get themselves, because we're using 2-meter telescopes, so research quality data and the 1-meter telescopes, and it's going into the pot with data from other sources. And if something happens quickly, we're probably a better place to get at things quickly than the professionals are with their longer term monitoring things. So it's really quite exciting, and it's good fun as well. So. Tiring, but good fun.
They're very enthusiastic classes. The
Yes.
first time I've attended a long distance classroom event, it was quite interesting.
Yeah. And we got some great pictures of kids beaming when they did their measurements. And
Oh.
it's just
So
fabulous.
you don't know who you've inspired in that class that may then go on to do this as a career. That's the joy of doing stuff with children, isn't it?
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And I think this is about the raising aspirations as well. So I came at this late, very late. But when I was in class on Friday, I'm saying to children, when I was your age, if you told me I would work on a space mission, I'd never have believed you. But if I can do it, you can do it. And you can see the kids just changing their views of what's possible. And even if we just inspire them to be scientists or not think that science is boring or whatever, that's a win for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, if they turn out to be amateur astronomers, brilliant. If they turn out to be the comet scientists ready for when Colin Snodgrass sends his Comet Interceptor mission in 10 years' time, perfect.
Well, one of the groups that I did a talk for via Zoom, somebody's children were watching and they said to the mum, I want to do exactly what Mary's doing when I grow up. And I was like, that's amazing. The kid was just sat there with the parent, and you just never know who you are getting to. You don't know what your reach is, because especially on Zoom, you've no idea who's watching on a webinar. And it's just so wonderful when you hear that you have inspired a child to do something STEM related.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing just showing kids what's actually out there, because I know, like, when I was in school, which is quite a few years ago now, we never had an opportunity like this before. Just to say that you could control a telescope on the other side of the world. Even now, when I say it to classes, I get a bit of a sort of chill. It's like, oh my God, that is amazing, really.
I still get that myself whenever we use remote observing stuff. It's just, you get up the next day and the data's in your inbox and it's like, wow, so cool.
Yeah, the only bad thing is you don't get to travel to those exotic places to use the telescopes anymore.
No.
One of the great things, I think, is the data that is taken by these telescopes is available for everyone to look at.
Yeah.
You can go in and into the archives. It's public, free to use. And you can, an aspiring comet scientist or amateur observer can go in, do a search, see if someone's observed a specific comet or asteroid or whatever, and pull down that data, and you can then do your own manipulation with it, check to see if you have the same results as other people. It's an amazing resource that many people don't realise is there.
I was about to say exactly the same thing, Tony. Yeah, if we send you the link, then you can put that onto the to go with the onto YouTube as well.
Yeah, stick it in the show notes, then people know where to find it. It's a good idea.
I have to admit, most of my imaging at the moment is remote. UK weather being what it is, every time I go to put a finger on my telescope, it starts to mizzle. So
Yeah.
it's the cover stays on. I'm not going to expose a 16-inch mirror to rain. But some of the pictures that Tony's seen that I've been putting up recently, I've been using a 0.5 meter telescope based on Mount Tady, and in some respects, it's actually pushed me back into restarting my degree at the OU. Funny, small world, isn't it, Helen?
Yeah.
So I'm restarting on planetary science. So comets all fit in nicely. Get to do a bit of geology too, which is even more fun.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I enjoyed that module when I did it at the OU. I just learned so much.
Yeah, well, Sarah has a lot to answer for me, actually, because Sarah was one of the lecturers when I decided to go back to learning, and did the observational astronomy degree at University of South Wales. So Paul Roach and Sarah were my lecturers, so they got me into all of this. It's all their fault.
So how did you decide to choose Churyumov-Gerasimenko? Is it because of Rosetta, or was there another reason?
No, I got hooked by the cartoons, and I am not too old to admit that. The storytelling of it was superb. It got me interested in the mission. So I started just watching what was happening while it was live. I was just coming to the end of my observational astronomy degree and was just started a master's in astrophysics at Cardiff University. And Colin Snodgrass actually put out a call for PhD students that was an observational call, so looking at the amateur data set. Now, I've been an amateur astronomer since my university days, inspired by the Voyager pictures back in the mid-1980s. So coming at a PhD project that potentially was amateur data and was Rosetta, what's not to like, really?
Yeah.
It was, I'm doing it part-time, so it's taken me quite a while. But no, it's looking at the data set, and I think the way that the PhD is moving is towards that maximizing the interface between pro and am. How do we make it better for both sides so that we can all advance comet science together? And so I think my one foot in each camp actually is definitely helping there. So.
Oh, the public engagement is so vital, and you're right, those cartoons were, I mean, I was bawling my eyes out when they put Philae under a little blankie to go to sleep, and as I'm not ashamed to admit that I sobbed when I watched that, and I can't recall having that level of engagement or interest in a mission. Obviously I've loved Voyager and all the other missions that ascended my ace photographs, but something about that cartoon just really got me, and it did with other people too, and definitely children. They relate to that far more than facts and figures.
Oh, without a doubt. We've used the Rosetta cartoons as part of the Comet Chaser project to definitely engage them. And you know, we've got all of the Rosetta stickers and things. They can make their own Rosetta models. It's just another tool in the armory for getting. Different children have got different things they like to do. And some will like the hard science, some will love the cartoons. So if you've got something that appeals to different ages and different interests, then I think it's absolutely brilliant. It just hit the spot, that one. I think I tried to really...
Sorry, I was saying I'm kicking myself for not getting the Rosetta plushies when they were available.
It was a stroke of genius, I think, all the sort of dissemination with the cartoons and everything. I like the one that I saw that said it didn't crash into it. It went in for a hug or something. It's like, I just love it. I really do. I loved all that.
I think one of the things that Rosetta did teach us was a better way to engage people. I think I was following the cartoons, like most people were, and the hard science, and it kind of made it even more fun. Yeah, that's the right word, fun. To actually to be spending to be looking at the images, looking at the scientific output as it was being made available, and it was just the right balance. I think the people who dreamed up that particular campaign really should be given a medal for finding such a great way to capture young minds.
Yeah, they've won a couple of awards for it, haven't they? And you know, very well deserved. Absolutely brilliant, as you say. Just got the balance just right between the lovable but the science angle of it as well, and the pace as well. Because I know that, you know, when we're showing the cartoons to children, they're only a couple of minutes long. But you get an awful lot of things into those couple of minutes. And I've done things where I've given them quizzes after. It's saying, okay, so what about this? What about this? So they have to replay them a couple of times. So the first time they just get the cuddly bit, then they have to go through, and then you can, because they've got that set in, they can then go back and pick up the things about, you know, Comet Halley and what missions went before and those things. So you can get some really nice education out of it as well.
That's great.
I met Helen through Rosetta. We both attended the Rosetta workshop in Austria at the end, and that was a fantastic experience. I met Padma as well for the first time in person, and there's a terrific set of Comet professionals there. Michael Ahern, Colin Snodgrass, and quite a few others were there. And it was good to see how the professionals work. I was the only amateur at the workshop, so I was a little bit nervous. But it was very enjoyable, and it was good to see that professionals did want to work with amateurs.
Yeah.
And that's what's got to go forward, work the two together, professionals and amateurs.
Yeah, I've met a few of the people involved with that mission, and they were all just so approachable and so lovely.
Yeah, it was.
I have to agree. I think the synthesis between the amateurs and the professionals has really shown, if not just our own communities, the world, that how we can all work together and actually get some great scientific information.
I think astronomy is quite unique in the sciences, really, isn't it? Because you can have astronomers who make a massive contribution to research. You don't generally get sort of, I don't know, amateur, I don't know, in other areas of research, in science research, you don't really get the amateur community like we do in astronomy. And, you know, they collect valuable data, they make valuable contributions, they do the data analysis and everything. So, yeah, getting professional and amateur communities and then doing the citizen science and getting the schools and teachers and the next generation involved, it all works really well together, I think.
I certainly remember the zoo projects Chris Lintop started up, which is still going. And they got people into citizen science and showed them it's a really great thing to do, because the deal was, if you number crunch for the projects or work on them, you actually get your name on the papers. So that was a really great way to get people started, and it's great that it's continuing today, particularly with I know that a lot of professional astronomers do have a problem getting optical time on the big scopes, and we're all out there. We're out imaging most nights, weather permitting, so we can actually help them because we can provide the images. They just because they can tell us how they want it, and then we can provide them that information. We can give them our telescope information, our camera setups, and even if the information isn't used until 20 years down the road, whoever picks it up sees exactly what's what and can use that and to get all the information they need out of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the next part of my project is working on. Is working up a website database, so a Comet archive that, if you've seen the Hot Young Stars website that Kent are running, we've sort of started using that as a starting point. But the idea is that you can upload your FITS files. Beforehand, you'll tell us what equipment you've got. So we'll store that. Then we'll associate the equipment with the FITS file. We'll play back to you what we think you've done to make sure that nothing's changed that you forgot about. But you can also upload your calibration files, so your flats and darks and whatever as well. So we've got raw data in an archive that will have all of the appropriate metadata attached to it. So if somebody comes along and wants to search, they can search knowing that that's robust because we've tested it. Some of the original 67p campaign data, we weren't quite sure what camera was used or what telescope or whatever. Whereas this one, we're thinking if we do the front end stuff right, then that's a long-term project that you can come back and revisit your own data. Other people can look at your data as well, and with the proper links in there, so that if your data gets downloaded, then it will say how to contact you, how you want to be cited, so that you get the credit, and we get the feedback then onto the website about anything that is using the archival data. You can see what's happening. It's a place to put campaigns, so people will be able to put up, we're looking at, so Richard Miles this week, I'm looking for 29p observations, this is what I'm looking for, details in there, standards, etc. So we can build something that is long term. That there's so much data out there, so much brilliant data out there from amateurs. It seems a bit of a waste that it's split around the place and people can't use it. So yeah. If we're going to stand it out in the cold and the dark at 3 o'clock in the morning, it would be nice if the information was then used in the future.
I know, I think people quite often feel that their data might not be good enough to submit. I've certainly been guilty of that myself. And the first time you submit something and you've done some astrometry and it goes towards a light curve, you're kind of buzzing that you've done something worthwhile. And and I'm terrible for not submitting my own pictures because I feel like they're not the right way to be presented or whatever, but the BAA really help you with stuff like that. So, my message to everyone else is submit your data. Like you say, you've thought long and hard to capture it, so put it to some use.
And I think, we can do both there, because we've got BAA that takes pictures with astrometrical data and whatever on it. That's a great archive, but it sits on its own. The COGS database takes measurements, brilliant. Other people do AFRO and hold it somewhere else. So if we can find a way through Europlanet has got a VESPA project which can act as an interface to all these different databases. So if you're looking for data, you search once and it goes off and finds it from different sources. So if you've got process data, then that will come back. If we're designing our database to take raw data, so it'll take the raw FITS files. And so if you want raw FITS files that you can then process yourself, and you can process consistent with the other data that you've got, then that's where our archive hopefully will plug a gap. So at that point, you really don't need to worry about whether I've processed it right, because the idea is that you put the raw data in there as well, so somebody else can use their techniques on your raw data. They can decide whether it's the right quality for them or not when they've got it. But it will go into the mix. And sometimes, if something has happened, it might be that your data isn't perfect, but if you've got the moment where 29p erupts, you've got that moment. You can see something that's changed, and you can constrain the time. So you might not be able to pick out great morphological features or whatever, but if you can see that that's the point of outburst, then that's important data. So different data for different purposes. But I think the point you're on about, we sit around the world, and comets are so unpredictable that perhaps for comets more than anything else, having as much data across time as possible is really, really important. Sarah did a PhD on dwarf galaxies. They probably don't change much over millennia, whereas comets can change over minutes. So.
Yes.
Well, I remember the cooperation all around the world for Shoemaker Levy 9. Yes, Neil, I had to mention it. But that was, I think, the real start in my books, where people actually got together and worked and handed over the observations to the next station, so that we could build up a picture of what was going on there.
Yeah, it's teamwork.
Yeah.
What Helen hasn't mentioned is just short of a year ago, Helen had a paper published called Seeing the Bigger Picture, the Rosetta Mission Amateur Observation Campaign and Lessons for the Future. And that might be something that'd be interesting perhaps in your, to have a reference in your notes.
That would be a good idea, actually, Tony. If we can put that into the show notes, that would be brilliant.
I'm sure Helen will send you a link.
I can send you a link, yeah.
Please
What
do.
I said earlier. Yeah.
The more the merrier, because that allows people who are listening to the show, they can click on it and they can be looking at what was being talked about. And so I think some of the feedback I have had about that was the fact that because I put the links in, they were able to understand exactly what we're talking about. As Neil will admit, and I'm as bad, sometimes we do get a little bit too technical. But if there's a link there that's explaining, perhaps in black and white, what we're wittering on about, then it makes it an awful lot more understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think perhaps the other thing is
do that sort of thing, especially these last couple of years for people not being able to go to meetings and all that sort of thing. The ability to join in the social media, Zoom calls. I mean, the last time I actually physically spoke was with astronomers was 5 years ago. Stuck on my mountain top, I don't get to see people.
Get out much? No.
I think the last real Comet meeting I went to was about 9 years ago at the Open University, and Dr. Simon Green was talking about the Osiris Rex and a few other things that were coming up at the time. So that probably dates me terribly.
Simon is formally my PhD supervisor.
But
I'd like to retire.
Yeah. Saying that, I really need to read. If people are listening and they want to, as a non-OU student, you can join the Open University Astronomy Club. I will put a link in for that as well, in case anybody's interested.
Definitely.
And if anyone else is interested in tardigrades, like me, the OU Space Society have got a new plushie. It's Captain Tardy McTardyface, and he is adorable, and mine arrived this morning and I can't stop hugging him because he's so soft and snuggly. So yeah, the OU do a lot of great things, but that's just a genius idea, because I adore tardigrades, and so do a lot of other people because of their astrobiology interest, and it's just awesome.
Neil.
Nick, yeah, I was going to ask Tony about the what data he's been able to get out of 67P so far. With have you been able to see any jets or measure them in size? Or
No jets whatsoever. I'm taking short observations now, as probably about every 4 or 5 days, excluding when it's the moon's in the way. But I'm keeping a a record from the images for the photometry and the astrometry information.
Yeah.
So this information is going to be made available to schools in spreadsheet format, so for them to create light curves from, because they will only be able to take a certain amount of observational time. And hopefully, though, during this next month.
They're already on it. Yeah.
Sorry?
I said St Mary's are already on 67p. So, yeah, we're hoping to get more schools observations now over the next, well, probably till Christmas, actually. Hopefully to run all the way through term.
That should be good. I mean, it's really this next 8 weeks or so when we should hopefully see some real activity.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think of the date of perihelion. It's towards the end of November, isn't it?
Beginning of November, 4th of November.
Second.
Second?
Yeah, second.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think it's the second. Yeah.
Third.
It's well placed for us as
2nd
well,
of
isn't it?
November, that's correct, yes.
Yeah, and it's well placed for us as well. It's nice and high this time.
Hopefully the next 4 weeks get in there, and then the 4 weeks after, hopefully then we'll see some sparks flying. If it doesn't, then I don't know.
It should be brightest in about January, I think, as well. I think the peak magnitude is just after perihelion, isn't it? So
Peak magnitude is probably about the 7th of November, so just after perihelion, and then gets close to Earth 13th of November, 13th,
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
So yeah, but we're thinking that perhaps if we do a concentrated campaign over that sort of 10 days, 2 week period, just before and through perihelion, through perigee, then that'll give us a nice condensed period where we can get lots and lots of different observations with different setups that we can use, not just for what it shows about 67p, but for testing some of our different processing methodologies as well.
Yeah,
We could do with the duck losing its head.
good.
Actually, I think Neil and I were actually discussing that at one point. Had the duck lost its head or something?
We were referencing Biela's comet, weren't we, from 1846 or 1852, I think it was, something like that. But actually this, I mean, 67p, this is the closest approach to Earth until 2067. So this is the time to get out and do all of this work, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, so I won't be around then.
nor will I, probably.
We'll be handing our data sets over to the next generation for that one, I think.
I think so, you see.
That's why we have to have this database.
Yeah, and the thing is, we know that happens because the early century apparition of Comet Halley, all of the plates from that were reanalyzed when they were looking for preparation for the 1985-86 missions. So yeah, it really happens. You can use long-term archives and pull out more information from them. The techniques improve.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a bit of research. It's great when you can link comets back into history as well. For example, we were looking recently at Comet 1861, Tebet, I think, and then we managed to link it to the Comet of 1500, and now all of a sudden we're doing a little bit of work at the minute with a bit of exclusive. We're trying to link it to the Comet of 1110 using Chinese records, which are very hit and miss because they didn't, do things as we do these days, but even, their basic writings, we're trying to translate and link these objects back to 1110 and all sorts of things. Just great resources.
Yeah, I'm just looking through on Stellarium to see kind of DSOs that it's going to be passing through. There are quite a few days where there are like small galaxies nearby or clusters or H2 regions, and that always makes for a really nice photograph as well for the pretty aspect of it rather than the science.
Yeah, the calendar shots.
Yeah, it's actually by the Crab Nebula at the moment, which I wish I'd known last night when it was clear.
And that is an area where the amateur astronomer with their own observatory can do very well, because with these very big scopes, the remote scopes, where you're booking time, you're sort of saying, well, within these hours. So you can't. It's very difficult to capture one of those galaxy flybys.
Yeah, so
Yeah, unless it's like really passing in front of it, it's hard to do with a bigger scope, isn't it?
There's been some terrific images on CometWatch with various comets in front of galaxies and nebulas.
Yeah, on the 12th of November, it's going to be just alongside a galaxy trio. That would make a fantastic photograph.
I think I'm going to be...
Perhaps you could find if one of the online spots matches with time for the schools.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's IC 484, 485 and 486 that it will be doing a close flyby of.
Also
Enough
decent
conjunctions.
then.
Sorry?
Fairly decent sized galaxies.
How big are they? They are Mag 14, so they're fairly faint galaxies, but if you can do some long exposures, you may pick them up. I mean, it's not the Leo triplet level of kind of galaxy brightness, but galaxies are always
a
good.
2-meter telescope, then that's all right.
Yeah.
I might be sending this out to our schools and say, oh, look, you can get pretty pictures as well as with the slides there.
That's it.
I'll see what I can pick up on with the 0.5 meter on Tady. I think
Yeah.
after the show, that's where I'm going to be heading over to see what slots I can grab and keep putting images in for the next few months at least.
Yeah, there's another very close flyby of a galaxy on the 24th of November too. That time it is NGC 2607. I love Stellarium for this. You can just kind of zoom through and see the track of something. It's quite handy.
Yeah, I think I'm changing comets, but I think Comet A1 Leonard, when it's meant to be approaching sort of naked eye visibility in December, is going to be passing straight through the centre of, is it Messier 3, I believe?
Oh, wow.
Around about December 8th,
Blimey.
directly in the centre. So that's going to look pretty good. It should be
Yeah.
that fourth magnitude. Nice dusty tail.
That would be awesome.
But Neil,
A couple of
comets are
days
like
after that,
hats.
go for it. Eh?
Comets
Well,
are
they are,
like
yes,
hats
but it's-
that have tails and they do with them
I
as
know.
they wish.
It's got a nice dusty tail at the moment, though. It's picked up since October, since the start of October, and it's looking quite good. It's going to be low, but it's looking good.
Well, if it's above 30 degrees, I might be able to get it then.
It's going to be lower than 30 degrees,
Oh, well,
I think. Or I don't know, though. No, actually, I think it's going to be higher than that. I think it's going to be about 46 degrees in the morning on about the 8th of December.
Okay. I'll see
Off the
what I
top of
can
my
do.
head. Don't quote me on that, please.
Well, you're just quoting yourself here, mate.
Yeah, well, you know me.
There's
Off
that
on
other
in.
comet that was discovered that's one of the biggest that's ever been discovered. I know it's not going to get particularly bright from our point of view, but an interesting object all the same, given its size.
Now that would be ideal to concentrate on. Is it 2014 UN 27 Bernstein or something? Yeah, I mean that's a cool.
It's
That'd be
100
great.
kilometres, I think I read.
Yeah, that's right, a monster.
Huge.
That's the one we got our schools on that one.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. A very good object for the big telescopes because I don't think it's going to get particularly bright from
Not
here.
really. Yeah.
So
it comes into Saturn's orbit in about 10 years' time. So part of the reason for putting the schools onto it right at the beginning was I could imagine that if it does get quite exciting in 10 years' time, then for the kids at the moment to be able to do the, well, yes, I've been observing it since we found it. I thought it might be quite cool.
Yeah.
So.
That's the best one-upmanship ever.
Perhaps by you, Helen, some of those images when they're taken could be posted to CometWatch.
Yeah. The thing with that one is it's a blob. In fact, we haven't done too much with it for schools because it doesn't look that good. Whereas the 24837 with this huge tail, that was wow factor. That was So now the other one.
They love tails.
Yeah. So we can put up some of the ones that we've done of the other comets, just so you can see what's going on.
If you have social media, Helen, send we'll try and get you into the group so that way you can. Are you in the group already? I can't remember.
I think Helen's in the group.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Don't worry about me. I've got about 8 or 9 things on at the moment, and I'm just trying to keep up with everything, including the group.
Everybody's in the group, I think, aren't they? Everybody in the world's in the group.
Yeah. Anybody who's anybody anyway.
All the main people are.
Well, I tell you what, I must admit, Tony, your images are amazing. And I'm not just saying this because you're a guest. I've privately told you this as well. Your images compared to a lot of images that I see all around the internet by various people, your images are, top grade.
Well,
the best things out there.
That's only because of the equipment we had access to with folks. I mean, compared with I daren't look at my earlier images of sort of 7 or 8 years ago now.
Well, I remember when you got the ice outburst. Do you remember that night, Tony?
Oh, yes.
You got the ice on outburst, and those pictures were amazing.
Yeah. And the tail disconnection, those sorts of things like tail disconnection, you won't actually get with a big telescope because you won't see it.
No.
So you need the wide field, and that's one of the things that we're stressing for the inclusion of amateur data, is you see different things. And comets, because of the different scales for comets, that actually is more important than it is for most objects in the sky. So if you're seeing things at different scales, you put them all together, you get the big picture. Now, if 6017 had been a bit more badly behaved, we probably would have had some really cool stuff about, from the Rosetta mission all the way through to wide field. Now, we didn't do big enough things often enough for us really to be able to test that. But we can definitely use the wide field images for useful science as well. So
I was only partially joking. The 4-inch short focal length Pentax refractor that I tended to use a lot was fantastic. At, not just with eyes on. So I think I used the C14 on that, but the ability of an amateur, when they spot something, if they do enough hours, then they will see with comets, then sometime or other they're going to capture something. I mean, I was very lucky a year or 2 after with one of the Lovejoy comets, and I caught the start of the outburst, and I followed it for, I observed it and imaged it for the rest of the night. I've had about 5-6 hours, which means that I can look at those images and I can see the blob gradually move further and further along the tail. It makes a great animation sometimes. I keep on saying I'll get round to it, but with about 1,000 images,
Imagine.
me off a bit.
Mary's got a tattoo, haven't you, Mary? Is that comment?
Yes, I do. A really big Lovejoy comet that was my favourite, so it's tattooed on my shoulder.
Did you have the disconnection event in there, or? Terry doesn't find many comments now,
I'll
does
send you a copy of the disconnection event, and then you can have it inked in.
Excellent.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, please.
So I was thinking when you're saying about all like wide field data being useful as well, my only picture that I got of ice on is probably 3 pixels. That's it. It was so tiny, and obviously then it was gone. So, but at least I have it. You know, even if it's a dot, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and you can do astrometry with it. If you look at where it is.
Yep, that's true.
So, and the little animations, if you show kids comets moving, I think that's really cool. I got one from 67p a couple of weeks ago with my home setup, and it's pretty noisy, but it's still quite cool. It looks like a tadpole, like, oh wow! So yeah.
I did a lot of that with NeoWise last year, just time-lapsing it constantly if it was clear, because seeing a comet moving against the stars is just so special, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's why when I stack them, I actually quite like my stars to be trailed, because it gives that illusion of movement.
Yeah.
Partly that, and partly because I can never get Deep Sky Stacker to do the dual stack properly, but the times I have got it to work, I've actually always preferred the trail star image, so just personal taste, isn't it?
Yeah, I can never get Deep Sky Stacker to work on comets either.
I can get it to stack on just the comet, but when I try to do it to stack on both, it kind of falls over a bit.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Well, there are quite a few tools now that you can use for stacking. Astrometrica, of course, I think just about everybody uses. Deep Sky Stacker, and then there's ASTAP as well, which is quite good.
Affinity Photo have now got an astro stacking function within it, which is quite good. Astro Pixel Processor is another one that we use if a Deep Sky Stacker hates stars that aren't perfectly spherical, and sometimes APP can be a little more forgiving on that and will stack stuff that DSS just point blank refuses to stack. But it's just good to have the opportunity of multiple programs to just get your data to work somewhere. There are so many softwares that are free now that you can use as well. Sequator's pretty good, that's free, and you can do all sorts with that. It's just finding the time to learn how to use them all.
What was that one you just mentioned, please?
If there's Affinity Photo, if you get a special discount code, you can get that for about £38. It's between £38 and £50, and it does everything Photoshop does but better, and it has a stacking function. But the other free one that I use is Sequator, and Astro Pixel Processor was the other one that we use. So yeah, we have so many stacking pieces of software, and if all of those fail, then we might use Maxim DL.
I found Nebulosity to be very good in the stacking area. I
forgot about that one.
I gave up on Maxim DL a long time ago, but Nebulosity I found was beautiful because it's free. It's donationware, so if you want to send them a few quid to say thank you, you can. But it is completely free, and it is, from what I've seen and other people have told me, they think it's better in some cases than PixInsight. But that's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, and once you've stacked it, you have the uphill battle of actually processing it without ruining it.
And I think actually that's why I like the way that Tony presents his images. It's that there's different ways of seeing the data, but without playing around with the data, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You see what's there. Sometimes just putting different colours on things can show up things that you don't see in just the raw black and white. One of the things we've had kids doing is doing isopods, So using Iris, which is another free software, and quite neat. Its automatic tools are quite straightforward to use. And so if you've got, we were doing it on 46p because it was a very big blob. So if you're drawing isophots and you explain to children that they're the equivalent of your contour lines, so contour lines for height, well, this is contour lines for brightness. And so by just overlaying the contour lines onto an image, you start to see the shape, you start to see the asymmetry, and you can see how it changes over your different image sets. And that's quite a neat way of just getting them to see how it was changing its direction, the way that it was symmetrical on one side but not on the other, and things. It's just different ways of pulling out different features from the data that allow you to draw some conclusions about what the comet might be doing.
It's one of the reasons why I like the false colour as well, because that can bring out extra detail. I don't do too much processing. I stretch sometimes to bring out some detail, but I don't have the skills that quite a lot of the people who are publishing comets on the net to produce beautiful looking images. So I just concentrate on doing enough to just bring out their various details, see it far away, see the coma close up, and things like that, and just use basic tools that's freely available. Aladdin I like to use because that will put in the latitudes and longitude lines, and you can put something in one of the boxes, and you can then put in other boxes the same image but do different things to it, but it's reflected then in each of the other boxes, which is terrific. So if you move the comet a bit to the left in one box, and it moves it in all the others. And of course it's got all the links to various databases. And I finish off by just using Microsoft Paint. I just paste things into Microsoft Paint and use that to put in the headers and footers.
Now, if it works, that's what
I do the same, Tony, with my information. Just slap it into Paint, and depending on how big the picture is, if it's a really large image, then I'll put it direct. I'll put my information directly on the image. If not, then I'll put it underneath.
And of course, I use Astrometrica. I couldn't do without that. It's not the easiest to use sometimes, but you get used to its quirks. And it's the only one that does all the activities, the photometry, the astrometry, the stacking, and in the information log within Astrometrica, which a lot of people don't look at, but there it's worked out the focal, the various sizes, the pixels and everything, and it's quite worthwhile having a rummage in the log file, and it's very cheap.
Yeah.
I need to go back and learn it again. It's been a long time since I've used it, but yeah, that's a good idea, looking in that file.
There's quite a few things in there, and one of the sessions I had with Helen and one of the teachers, we're doing a tutorial using Zoom on how to use Astrometrica. That proved a useful experience on all sides, I think. Because it makes you, when you're looking at things and say, well, how do I describe this to teachers and children? It makes you think yourself, how does this actually work? And I actually discovered a few things just by having to put together the tutorial.
Yeah, I think so. And what we've been putting together, Tony, we haven't quite finished it yet. But the idea is that we start schools off with basically sanitized data. So we'll take the data, we'll run it through Astrometrica so we know that it solves. And then we'll give them to schools with that says, okay, go ahead and do it. And we can give teachers basically the worked out answers then, so they know if they're doing it right. But then when we got confidence from that, then they can start analysing their own data as well. And as long as they're running with live data and we've got the setup right because we've done it before, they should be able to pull out their own answers relatively straightforwardly. And somebody said, can you do this with 10, 11-year-olds? And actually, it was probably harder teaching the teachers how to use the software than it was the 10, 11-year-olds who just went, oh yeah, okay. They're so used to doing things that they were there, they were putting the aperture where it needed to be, they were clicking the buttons, they were following the instructions, no problem at all. The one thing that was interesting was that when they did their measurements of the brightness, and then they came to graph it. So I get a question from the teacher that says, what's the unit for magnitude? Magnitude just is. There is no unit for magnitude. And then when you tell them they have to plot the axis the wrong way up as well, that just sort of the teachers looked at me like, okay, I trust you, bet what?
Goes everything else that they tell their pupils, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, but you say, if you do it this way, then its brightest is when at its peak. It makes sense then, but it's a very odd historic way of doing it. Really. But they did it. They plotted their own brightness. Real science.
No, good.
Definitely a skill worth having, because if you are going to go into this as a professional, the fact that you learned it at school means when you're at college or university, life will be an awful lot easier.
Yeah,
It will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what we're actually hoping we can build is some Python routines, because again, the kids are doing the programming. But if we can do some Jupyter notebooks or something where they can use sliders for changing, say if they're doing comet measurements, what are you measuring? So you've got a slider that changes the aperture size and then runs it. So you can see how if you measure in a bigger aperture, you get a bigger number. So things that you can see visually then by changing some of the parameters, we think that would be quite good. And then at the moment we're working with primary schools, but we can see that there's so much good learning in this for so many different parts of the curriculum that you could take through secondary schools as well. Then by the time you get up to A-level and maybe A-level projects, then using that the actual programming skills there and using some of the astronomy tools in Python, so AstroPy, as an example, you get a head start when you get to university.
Python is so valuable to know, isn't it? It's so versatile. It's incredible what you can do with Python. Yeah.
My first encounter was week one of my master's course. Unfortunately, it was from 0 to an assignment in 3 weeks, which was probably the hardest thing I've done in my life, actually.
Gosh.
And because Cardiff worked on semesters, you only had till Christmas to sort it out as well. It wasn't a case of, well, as long as I can do it by the exams, I'll be all right. So, yeah, it was baptism of fire.
But
I'm starting to understand it now, yeah.
Yeah, we've got 4 UK Meteor Network cameras, and a lot of the stuff behind the scenes with that is Python. And my husband's written so many extra modules for like just these tool sets that do various things with the data automatically, and it really is mind-blowing the sort of stuff you can do with it. So, and not just with kind of Meteor stuff, but just in general. He uses it for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
None of which I can think of now. My mind's gone blank, but he uses it all the time.
The website we're developing at the moment is written in Django, which is Python.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea is that it will take all the FITS files and use the Python models for those. It'll rewrite the FITS headers in standard format using Python. It will do the astrometry, the photometry. It will link through to astrometry.net to do the solving. It's all of those links you can build in through Python routines. So yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I'm talking about it like I can code, and I really can't. I did a few very small coding things on a Spectrum in the 1980s, and that was it. So I can't code for anything.
My memories of coding are in Z80 machine code, and that did my head in as it was at the time. No BASIC or anything. BASIC didn't exist on the computers I had, on my computer. I literally had to do everything in machine code. I think it took me 6 months to actually program a graphic for Christmas.
Blimey.
Yeah. Those were the days.
Surprised it didn't put you off for life.
Well, I suppose because I've always had that home technical stuff to play with, like radios and stuff. It was a case of just suck it up and stick to it and come out the other end, really. Neil.
There's one thing I was going to ask Tony. This is going off. What was the very first comet that you saw again, Tony, that got you into all of this? I can't remember.
Sorry. I was Halley. Halley in 1985 and 1986. So,
yeah, that was mine. Yeah.
Yeah, my first with astronomy was actually, I did a maths degree in Swansea. And so we did celestial mechanics, which fascinated me with Kepler's laws. And the Voyager pictures on my applied math tutorial wall got me interested. And then Halley, myself and a friend on top of a mountain with some binos going, I can see a smudge.
Mm-hmm.
I can see a smudge too. Is it in the same place? I think we've seen Comet Halley.
Yeah.
That was as exotic as it got. But,
I'm very jealous.
That's right.
yeah. And then actually the Giotto mission was on my birthday. So
Wow.
I remember that one. Yeah.
I was
That's
actually,
an awesome birthday gift.
I remember the Giotto missions because I was at work and they let me into the conference room so I could actually see some of the live feeds from the flight, some of the instruments that had been built by my then employer. Those were the days. Then of course the imaging side was Comet Holmes back in 2007. That's what kicked off my imaging thing. So I stopped being a visual observer and purely became an imager afterwards.
Yeah, that was the first one I imaged. Yeah, I remember trying to find out with binoculars actually, and thinking we can't find it, and it was actually that the whole of the field of view with the binoculars was inside the comet. It was so big, so you couldn't see the edge because it was outside the field of view. It was huge.
I think I imaged it. It was via Mount Tady at the time. So yeah, strange how things have come around. Tady's got some of the biggest instruments in the world still, and some of the cutting-edge instruments for amateurs to use as well now. And Coast is there as well, as I remember.
And of course we had High Tack, didn't we, in 96, and Hale Pop in 97.
Hydra was my favourite.
Yes, that was a comet, wasn't it? Cool. Oh, like the ones of the good old days that you see on the manuscripts from the 1500s, you know, that were blazing in the sky with 100-degree tails and things like that, you know.
Oh, if only.
Cool.
Yeah,
It had a pretty big tail that night, I must admit.
I was with the Croydon Astronomical Society at the time, and there was a lunar eclipse. So it was the last chance to see Hyakutake when it was a full eclipse.
Yeah.
And just started to observe it, and Sky TV turned up.
Oh no.
So I never got to see it because I had to spend all my time with Sky TV, who were more interested in looking at the lunar eclipse. I've still got a videotape somewhere where they was asking various inane questions, and
We'll have to put that up.
it's sport my last look. I mean, that really was a beautiful. It came out of nowhere.
It did, yeah.
And I think those are the comets I really like. You just suddenly appear and do their display and then go.
The thing that at the time though, technically Hyakutake was a rubbish comet, wasn't it? Because it had a low absolute magnitude, but the fact is it came so close to Earth that it was such a wonderful sight, but it was so quick. Whereas Hale-Bopp was much farther away, but a bigger comet, and we saw it for 18 months naked eye.
Yeah.
So that's, if only Hale-Bopp had been, you know, that close as Hyakutake, 0.1 astronomical units or whatever it was, it would have cast shadows, wouldn't it? It would have been as bright as Venus and filled the sky with a tail.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, it would have been.
Would have looked like the way that the press describe every comet that makes the headlines.
It would, and it would be genuine, yeah. Just like there's probably an asteroid heading towards us right now as well, isn't there? Probably
Obviously there is. Always.
Yeah. The size of the Eiffel Tower? That's normally
No, it's the size of 7 double-decker buses.
Ah, yes.
It has to be in some random unit of buses.
That's all the public can cope with.
Something, I can't remember what it was now, something was described as being the size of 7 washing machines. It was a sinkhole in America, and I think the caption was, Americans will use absolutely anything to describe a size that isn't metric. It was like, who measures anything by the size of a washing machine? It's so stupid. It was,
Going by the size of the London bus.
yeah. Yeah, bus I can get on board with, but washing machines are varying in size depending what you have.
I was going to say, is it a commercial washing machine or a home washing machine?
Precisely, it makes a big difference to the number.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think we're heading towards another record-long show. I'm looking at this.
Crikey.
Well, I'm showing 1 hour 32,
Time flies.
33 minutes now. So we're doing quite well. I'm probably going to get yelled at by AFM, but who cares? This is the only show that can run longer than 60 minutes on their server. So,
So it's 5 past midnight here.
yeah,
The comet should be up then, Tony.
Yeah.
Get
Be
out.
outside.
I think probably at this point, this is probably a good point to stop because I know it's late for a lot of people. I just want to thank you, Tony, for coming. You too, Helen, and you too, Sarah. It's been brilliant having you on. Will you all come back at a later date?
That would be good. It's been good to be here. And I think Sarah can tell you all about Focus Telescope projects as well, wider than just comets if you want at some point.
Yeah, that would be great.
Neil, that gives us an idea for the other show we do.
Yes. How are you? Are you free in November? if you're free in November, we have another show that you may like to come on.
Okay, good. I'm hesitant because I don't know what it is.
It's Anglo-Irish Astro Geeks.
Yes.
Ah, brilliant.
And we talk all things astronomy, and I'd love to hear all about your
Full
exciting
telescope.
adventure. So
Right.
let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll get it planned. We'll get it planned. Nick,
What was that, Neil?
get the diary out. Get the diary out, Nick.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay. What I'll do is I'll get in contact with everybody and we'll work out a mutual date that everybody's happy with. There we go. That's what I normally do.
Excellent.
Through Neil.
Good idea. Absolutely. Let's do it.
So I think at 1 hour 35 minutes, I think we probably everybody call it a night. I'm pretty sure Tony wants to get outside, so
Yep.
it's good night from me.
Good night from me.
And
Good night for me.
And me.
No stop.
No star from me.
Diolch yn fawr, nostar.
Oh, great stuff.
Buenas noches.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.